So leave it to me to drag my feet all day and not get started on this when I had the whole day without anything to worry about as far as people getting home, dogs barking, all that fun stuff. Now we're at the point where it's almost 4, so it could easily go chaotic. So hopefully that doesn't happen. If it does, then I might just delete this. Who knows? Of course, that's always a possibility anyway. Not that I do that very often, really, but I've had a lot of chaos in videos that I still let get posted, and yeah, is what it is. So today I've been thinking a lot about how you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. And this came up because yesterday had a miscommunication with a friend, and my immediate reaction was, debating on just like throwing the whole friendship just away, right? But I don't think that's quite the purpose of what happened. It was awkward. There was just a whole lot of not good communication on both of our ends. And I thought I'd go ahead and share that because why not? I mean, I've talked about my shortcomings on here plenty, so why should this be any different, I guess? So she was talking about being frustrated with her husband's situation because he is not helping her to pay the bills. He is on his self-discovery path or whatever and has excuses for why nothing's working out, but hasn't got anything figured out so he can help contribute, and she's getting really stressed out. Of course, my wrong clock's at 6:54 and the right clock is at 3:45, so that's fun. Crazy synchronicities all day, so that's, really exciting. Okay. She was venting, and it was perfectly fine. But then there was that moment where, we've kind of had some, like, weird, just a weird energy dynamic when she'll get frustrated at something that with him, because he writes songs but then doesn't share them with anybody, and, isn't making the moves to have that be a real thing either. So she pulled me into it, and this was the wording she used. She said, "And for the record, obviously I have no judgment for your journey of self-discovery, Storm. You don't have anyone else depending on you, and so you get to take that luxury. Your time is completely your own. I've been begging my partner to step up for years, and he's done nothing. So obviously, and he's done nothing." So that was the end of her comment there. But since she dragged me into it, it's like, I get that sense from plenty of people that, I'm not doing enough or whatever. And my brother says his biggest thing that he hears from our mom particularly is that she thinks I'm throwing my life away because she doesn't know what I'm doing and isn't really okay with that. But I don't know, just the way she threw it out there, the way she said it, talking about, it just didn't sit right. But since we're talking about the failures here, so my Cancer crabbiness inclination is there's this little GIF or whatever that I like to share with friends and family. There's this little crab walking on the floor and he's got a knife in his hand or in his claw. It's like, yep, I feel that. So my response was, I'm where I am because it was never a priority for me to do anything except contribute to toxic family cycles. I've thrown away thousands of dollars because I was told I had to go to college after high school because my mom didn't, and it was one of her biggest regrets, so it wasn't an option to take some time to figure out who I was or what I wanted to do. I made shitty decisions in marriage because of the toxicity I was familiar with, and that wasted so much time and money that I can't get back, though it did teach me valuable lessons with toxic connections not working out for anybody's actual good. It hasn't paid anything yet, but in time it will, and because of that, I don't feel bad about letting my parents or anyone else think I'm useless or throwing my life away because I'm not doing anything they can see yet. This fucking YouTube journey in and of itself has been exhausting because just by starting it, I expanded so far beyond what I'd been made to think I was even capable of. I decided in high school I didn't want kids if I couldn't break the cycle because I refused to perpetuate it myself. This is the universe answering that. If we're calling that a luxury, so be it. So, yeah. Her next response was, as someone who has never been able to put myself first because of my children, I can't help but see it as a luxury. I became a mom before I was even an adult. Every move I have made has been solely for their benefit. Could I have chosen not to have children? Sure. Unfortunately, I wasn't equipped with the knowledge and tools to prevent that when I was 17. And so I've been rolling with the punches ever since, surviving. In a few more years, I might be able to say fuck it all and take some time for self-discovery, but until then, I have other people to worry about. Until then, I'll keep showing up at the job that is slowly taking years off my life and slowly breaking down my body because they need health care and food and a house to live in. So, my response was, yeah, you didn't have to pull me into your bitch fest, was the bigger point. I was receiving their indirect stabs well enough before you felt the need to say my situation was in some kind of way different from your husband's being a lazy ass. And she says, I truly didn't mean any offense to you. I only said anything because I realized that what I was saying might hit the wrong way. I don't give a fuck the way you choose to live your life, and that is the only point I was trying to make. I will withdraw from this conversation. Sorry for my bitching. I thought this was a safe space, and I've been struggling. It was fine. It just didn't need to pull me into it like that. Maybe a, hey, I don't mean for this to come across in any way as a slight to you if that's how you are receiving it. Shifting to calling my shit a luxury when it has literally been a matter of working through emotionally and psychologically abusive systems feels a bit harsher. So she apologized for her wording, and I apologized for going full crab and getting defensive. And she said, well, I don't even know that it's the rest of it's relevant. It was trying to ease out of it, I guess, was the bigger thing. But it was one of those, it's like the way she was talking and then turned it on me felt to me like, I guess, much more of a, well, in the moment, I definitely got defensive. But it was, yeah, I don't know. It wasn't helpful. It wasn't a pretty situation, I guess. It was frustrating, and we more or less left off, well, it's one of those, it's like you can't undo what's already been said, and obviously some things were said on both sides that weren't ideal, and yeah, I was writing this stuff down, and I pulled some cards that happened to feel completely relevant to what had just happened, and I was watching this Nordic Light tarot reading at the same time, And she, as I was looking at the card meanings and listening to this tarot reading, she said something about it sounds like a spiritual test. It's like, yeah, doesn't it though? It's like just that perfect timing with, yep, that was it. Yeah, a little bit later, you know, our other friend said, okay, well, let's go back to it. I said, you can vent as much as you want and need to. It's completely valid. Just maybe don't throw out more than a simple, look, I'm sorry if this comes across as a jab to you in any way. That's not how I mean for it. And just resume with the rant and the stuff that is affecting you directly in your own life. And she said, that's literally all I meant. I'm not really eloquent. I'm starting to think I may have autism. I took a test and score pretty high. I said, it happens, me neither, not without some space to think first. And then our other friend chimed in with, words are stupid at times, and written words can be such bullshit because they can be interpreted so differently. Yeah, she said she was always getting in trouble for saying things the wrong way, and that's why she doesn't talk to many people. And the other friend says, story of my fucking life, except my lack of filter and impulse control means it flies out of my mouth. I'm really grateful for having a job where a vast majority of communication is written. And I said, plus everybody views things through their own lens, and it's hard to know what that is without the full backstory. So it felt kind of like a fail. But like my immediate response when I got pulled into it was, well, we might be done here. You know, like the friendship. And then it's like, does it really make sense to throw the entire friendship away just because of one miscommunication? And well, we probably had some other weird stuff, but you know, a lot of our communication is in person. So, or was when we were playing Derby and all that fun stuff. So it's like, I don't know. My immediate response when I sent Ben and my brother a message was like, oh, well, that might have just killed the Derby Friends group. Because they're the only two that I still talk to from there with any kind of regularity. And then it's like, does it really make sense to throw the whole friendship away because of this thing that happened, this misunderstanding? And I get the frustration, I absolutely do. So that's not the point even. But yeah, just I don't know, it wasn't pretty, and it sucked. But then I was thinking about how it's those moments that don't go smoothly that leave a bad taste in your mouth and kind of stick with you for longer than maybe you'd like them to, that you tend to learn more from. So yeah, I think there's something else I'm trying to figure out if there's more on that. I closed the page from where I was. You know, just put everything in this Twin Flame journal book thing. Oh, there it is. I didn't close it, I just turned it over. So the pattern app mentioned this thing. Says, on January 2nd, 2025, Venus is entering Pisces. The intention is to shift your relationships and self-worth. This influence is encouraging you and others around you to dissolve your usual emotional boundaries and connect with others deeply. During this time, intuition and sensitivity are heightened, making it easier to merge with others and bond in ways that go outside the ordinary. During this period, you may feel a strong yearning for deep connection and authentic intimacy. This can be a beautiful time for opening your heart and allowing yourself to be more vulnerable in relationships. However, this same energy might also intensify feelings of loneliness or highlight any dissatisfaction in your partnerships. The transit asks you to be honest about your emotional needs and desires, making it harder to ignore or pretend if something isn't right for you. So that also kind of seems relevant. But yeah. There's something else I was thinking about on that end with this whole failures thing. Oh, I started writing earlier today. I had a little more book direction, focus, and as I was writing, it's like I kept shifting. It's like, okay, I think this is a start point, and it's like, nope, that's not the start point. And it's like, no, go a little further back. Nope, this is the start point. And it's like, nope, that's not right either. So I was kind of playing with that for a little bit, and it took me back to, I decided to start with this point on negative synchronicities. Yeah, because I talk about synchronicities on here quite a bit. And, those mean that you're in alignment, right? And on the right path. So if nothing else, you can just look at it as a real quick, easy way to think, I am where I'm supposed to be in this moment. I started writing about these negative synchronicities that I had occur when I was not where I was supposed to be. And I started with talking about, okay, so where it's going was the series of unhelpful things that happened like after I got married, because when I was going into the wedding, I've talked on here many times about how excuse the bird noise. He just moved off of his swing. I was talking about, I've talked on here about, that's where I was at, about my how on my wedding day I had the entrance interview for my seminary that I went to instead of doing like wedding day stuff, right? And it was specifically to avoid spending time with myself, because I knew if I spent any kind of legitimate time with myself, I probably would have backed out of the whole wedding thing. And then, I talked about walking down the aisle, how I had that voice talking to me the entire time about, don't do this. You don't have to do this. It's like, you don't even like each other, let alone love each other. Why would you do this? And just this conversation that was going the entire time. And for various reasons, I did not feel like I could back out of it. And especially like with the money that had gone into it at that point and all that crap, there's a whole lot that seemed to be pushing me in the direction of, please don't do this. And then I did it anyway, and I've talked about how my mom and my best friend at the time both said I didn't have to go through it. My friend offered to drive the getaway car if I wanted to leave. She said it wasn't too late, we could go. Enjoy Buddha a little. I'm talking, so he's gonna sing now. But yeah, like I've talked about how I needed my dad or my brother to be the ones to say something about it wasn't a good idea, or just to matter enough to those two for them to say something. And it's like I felt like, or I feel looking back, like I had this I made this absolutely awful decision for myself, and it's like, it can't be more noticeable than this, that this is not a good situation, right? So surely they would say something, and then they didn't say anything. So I felt for some reason like I had to go through with it. And yeah, but like the entire time there was that voice that was saying, don't do it. You don't want to do this. Please don't do this. And then I went through with it anyway, right? So then, like, over the next several months, there was a whole lot of shit that just kept going wrong. And, like, one of the things that happened was Buddha and his robotics now. It's a little distracting. We were renting a house. Like, it was in March, and we were signing the lease on this little rental house. And while we were talking to the landlords, I got a phone call that I didn't answer right away. It's like, okay, I'll figure out what that is after this, because we were in the middle of paperwork. And when I got back to it, it ended up being the temp agency I worked with said my job was no longer available. It's like, that figures. It's just literally just signed a lease on a house. And, in that process, I got a phone call, and it was because I was losing my job. It's like, great. And that was like Easter weekend. So, because, obviously that's exciting. You got a full freaking holiday, so let's go fire people. Yeah. That's one of those things. So, since I was in school, I decided that I would just max out my student loans for that semester and, use that to help pay bills, and then would focus on finding a job after the semester ended. And of course, the semester ends on May 8th. And then May 14th, I fell on the stairs and got a traumatic brain injury and was all sorts of jacked up. And I did eventually go back to the group home that I had worked at before the temp agency job. And there was plenty of stuff that was of concern there. I had been signed up to do a hospital chaplaincy internship over the summer, and then I had to postpone that because I was in no shape to do that kind of stuff. So I was just writing about all the stuff that started going wrong, and it's going back to that point of you learn more from your failures and from the bad stuff than from the successes, right? So if you don't have the times of big losses, and then you're not going to be able to appreciate the wins as much either. So it's that's a whole thing. So that's yeah. Go ahead and read this thing. I pulled some cards a little bit ago, and there were a couple of them that really stood out as relevant on this whole conversation thing. And one of them was the star, and this is the Secrets of the Ancestors Oracle. I get it. She is noticing that we're still doing this and not worried about her FOOD. So, yeah. Okay, she says, for the star, it says, hello, season of renewal. There is sunshine after the storm. You've been through it. Like those who came before you are more than a survivor. You are a thriver. Others seeing your beauty inside and out, being vulnerable, can feel emotionally awkward, but know your vulnerability to be a strength, or allow your vulnerability to be a strength and a superpower. Come as you are, step into the limelight, be seen, be heard, be a movement. You are the star of your own show called life. You are blessed. This is a lush, fertile season of transformation, and you are nourishing the earth, and the earth is nourishing you. Trust your inner guidance as you are perfectly divinely aligned. New ideas are flowing to you. Allow yourself to receive. And then the next card was the Shadow in reverse. And it says, your intuition may be blocked, but still release the fear. Don't give up. Bypassing is a no-no. Face your inner demons. Realize that your judgment is cloudy. Deal with your beautiful and ugly self. There is beauty in the ugliness and ugliness in the beauty. Allow yourself to be. And I think that was kind of the point of why I felt like this was something I wanted to talk about today. There's that whole, Now, obviously, lashing out isn't really helpful to anybody, but, you know, it made me look at the fact that, like, my initial response was to throw the whole friendship away. That's seems a little dramatic for a miscommunication. However, it's also one of those things, it's like, how do you come back from that also? So it's kind of a point that I'm working to navigate through now, I guess. Yeah. I started writing today, and then I got an email from the chaplain that I went to that, or that invited me to that Army versus Navy football game watch party thing a while back. And he sent me an email about there is a Legion meeting tomorrow, and he invited me to come. And he wants to sponsor me to join the American Legion. And no, I mean, I've heard good things, but at the same time, it's like, you know, considering I accidentally knocked my curtain rod down earlier, and I haven't put it back up yet because I just wasn't in the mood to mess with it. It's real simple. I just gotta stick it up there, but it's my curtain I flip over on top of my DVD case so that, you know, my plants get light and, you know, birds get light. And Taz had it on his head for some reason. So, yeah. Anyway, so he invites me to this thing, you know, and when I went to the watch party, he had me fill out this form about joining. It's like, well, I don't really know anything about it. Not sure that I'm dying to do it or anything, but I filled out the information to, you know, at least keep in touch and check it out a little further, I guess. And so, I decided to ask my dad if he wanted to go too, because I know he's talked about it before, and I think he's a member but doesn't ever go to any of the meetings. But the one closest to us, he didn't really know anybody at that one except for like this one band parent back from the band days. And that guy has since died, so he said he might actually know somebody down there. So, of course, he was interested, right? But we started talking, and I said, you know, this chaplain and, you know, I don't remember his exact role in the unit I was with, but he was the dude in charge of us, little piddly minions. It's like, those are the only two people I ever talked to. And it's like, wait a second, when was the last time I talked to Joey? So I happened to go on to Facebook. It's like, I gotta figure that out because it seems like it's been a minute. It's like, he's one of those, he was in charge of us, but then after he retired, which was like right before I left to get my medical discharge, yeah, he said he would like check in with people periodically. I've gotten a couple phone calls from him. Last time I was in Alabama. It's like, well, that's been a minute. You know, and I remembered that. And it's like, I know I've talked to him since then, but I don't remember anything beyond that. So I looked that up, and I was like, what the hell? So I sent him a message today and realized it had been since October 2021 that I had last spoke to him. But it was funny because I sent him the message, and then after I sent it, I noticed it came up sent at 2:22. So it's like, okay, there's that. And there are a couple weird little things. The chaplain and then this guy's company that he started, it's like the last four digits of both of their phone numbers had the twin flame birth date in them in some form. I was like, that's interesting. And then I also happened to go to Joey's Facebook page and was looking around at some of his posts because it's like I don't know that I've seen anything recently. And then it's like, oh yeah, I have, but like this, there were a couple things that were like, or like one was something with something with a rodeo, that deal. I don't know, but the number on the thing, it was like an auction, I think. Had 2222 on it. It's like, yep, okay. Clearly I was meant to talk to him today. So we talked a little bit. And that was, yeah, it was pretty good. Kind of weird because I saw it was apparently 2021 when I was on the dating apps, because that was the last thing that I had mentioned in our last conversation. It was something about how awful it had been going, and it made me realize that there was a whole lot I didn't want to meet out there. And also still trying to not give up hope that there were decent people out there, but that was still just where the conversation had ended off, so it was kind of just a weird thing. But then we're catching up, he was talking about his excavating business, and I asked him what that's like in this weather, because it's like my dad and I dropped the car off at the auto shop in town today, and when we were driving back home, it was like 15 degrees, and there's like all this excavation work that's happening at the road near our house, because they're putting in a roundabout and widening the road and all this stuff. So they're moving like the water lines and all that fun stuff. It's like, that doesn't sound like something that I would enjoy at all at this point in time. And, so he was talking about that a little bit, just in this weather, how it all was going. And, of course, asked about work, because, it's one of those natural conversation pieces, right? It's like, well, I said that I do respite care with my niece. I said that I'm working on trying to get into writing and have a social media project. And I wasn't going to say anything more than that. And it's like, yeah, why? I don't talk to him. He doesn't ever post on my stuff. We just talk on occasion, and then won't say anything for another few years. And then one day somebody's like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a minute. How are you doing? So, yeah, but I kind of gave him the overview of what all was going on with that. But it was kind of interesting, because I had this thought back in December when I was debating on going to that watch party. I mentioned that I never felt like part of that community, really. I always felt like I was an imposter for the military stuff. Oh, that went back to Veterans Day, even. Enjoy the serenade of Another One Bites the Dust. Now he stops. Yeah. But going back to Veterans Day, it's like I had that conversation with the Derby friends that had the miscommunication with last night, or yesterday. And they said something about, but you still, no matter how it turned out, you still signed up to do the thing and tried to do the thing for a time. So you were still a part of the thing in that way to some capacity, even if it didn't feel like it. And just kind of navigating that whole imposter syndrome thing. And then in December, I kind of had this moment of thinking, it's like, I'm kind of over the idea of not fitting in anywhere. It's like, everybody is different, right? There were no two people that had exactly the same background in the military experience that I had, or in the Derby experience that I've had. No two people have had the exact same story. They might have a lot of overlapping points or whatever, but it's like nobody's got the same stuff. So why should I feel like an imposter for everything just because of how something did or didn't turn out? So I decided to kind of, I guess, take on the attitude of wherever I go, just the fact that I'm there means that for some reason the universe has some purpose in my being there. And in that case, if you're meant to be wherever you end up at, then why should you feel like an imposter? And if you're there, then for some reason you were able to get there. So whether it's a thing that you got to work on, a lesson you got to learn, or whatever, or maybe something you're offering, energetically speaking, in that community while you're there, there's some purpose for being there. So it doesn't seem, I guess, useful at all to always be holding yourself back because you don't feel like you fit in. Even though that's been my whole life. I've literally spent my whole life feeling like I didn't fit anywhere, and I took everything personally. That was part of that shadow aspect thing. I've gotten those messages that talk about nourishing your shadow. And basically, it's like no matter what work you do, you're still always going to have the shadow aspects, but you need to learn to navigate through those, right? So I guess that was the big thing, like with the little miscommunication yesterday. It's like, oh, so easy it is to pull out the claws and to get defensive and go on attack rather than stop, take a breath, and then backtrack and see if it's even worth that much energy. It's like attack first, ask questions later. That's not helpful. And yet I did it. So yeah, I don't know how much of the emotion was effectively communicated in the reading it, since I feel kind of like I sound weird today. But it is what it is. And it's like, I pulled another card that was talking about, I want to say, was the balance card from my Spirits of Nature Oracle. I wrote it down too. I've just been writing everything down. Okay, and it says, it's especially important for you now to remain as steady and grounded as you can while simultaneously standing and walking tall to stay in touch with the celestial realm. The balance of these two polarities is not a static position you achieve and then maintain effortlessly. It's a constantly shifting dynamic with flow, with periods where you can feel yourself aware of both your spiritual reality and your physicality. By embodying spirit, you are much more open to receiving guidance from both the spirits of nature and the celestial realm, ancestors, ascended masters, and my contact's all goofy, and archangels, to experience that convergence of earth and heaven. Stand on earth with your feet, or your full stature, barefoot if possible. Close your eyes, breathe deeply and slowly, and imagine yourself as this magnificent being called the sequoia. Enjoy the synergy that is created when heaven and earth dance together in celebration of true oneness in these perfect moments of true balance. Yeah. Yeah, balance. Figuring that out. Especially while also navigating when the shadow rears its ugly head, and that attack first, ask questions later comes out because I took it personally, and then trying to figure out what's going to come of it from there. I know that's not completely over with yet because it just feels icky the way it was left off. So it's like that can't be the end of it. But yeah, like when it first came up and when I was like, ouch, that sucks, and responded a little harshly, you know, I was even thinking, okay, we were all three supposed to meet up near her house and go out to eat and then go to this little ceramics place. I say this because I have a little turtle that I did. Okay, this was one I did with my my former mother-in-law's family, and I just happened to pull that out of a storage tote when I was going through boxes and trying to purge some stuff. And it's like, hey, that's a art thing I did, so I should have that in my space. So I brought it in and put it on my shelf, and then one friend bailed on us, and the other two of us went to this little place to do another one of those kind of things, and I painted this elephant, and we have not picked up the elephant yet. I looked at the timer at 41 minutes and 11 seconds and was getting ready to say the address of this place was 111. I have gotten 2 text messages from them reminding me that I have this thing to pick up from their shop. However, it's like almost a 2-hour drive, so it's not real convenient to get up there if I'm not going up there for other things. And so far, I've usually been going for skating and food. But, you know, like when that whole thing came up yesterday, because I've been thinking, you know, I've thought a few times that I wanted to go get that picked up. And then yesterday I was like, so what, am I now going to go up there and like not link up with her at all just because we had this miscommunication and that, you know, everything went to hell? And I thought about it briefly and it's like, yeah, that's not cool either. So that's still something I'm going to have to figure out. But if nothing else, I guess it's an excuse to have to go up there. And I mean, we don't have to hang out or anything, but she knows that I still have this thing to pick up. She talked about maybe stopping over at the shop and picking both of our stuff up just so it's not sitting there abandoned in the shop. Gidget's starting to fuss at me. But she hasn't done that yet, so it's like, well, I don't know. But then it's like, it doesn't make sense to throw the whole friendship away just because of one fucked up little conversation that we both said some things that weren't very nice and didn't come across very well. Yeah. It just sucks. But that goes back, like I said, that whole thing about you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. So I anticipate if we get this worked out, and I'm sure we will, you know, let your vulnerability be your superpower thing that I think the star card talked about. Yeah. So far, that's not really a easy one, I guess. You know, and then going back to, like, you know, I mentioned when I was talking to her about if we're calling it a luxury that I've had to do this, like, healing from this emotionally and psychologically abusive shit, then fine, or so be it. But it's like, at the same time, you know, that goes back into that little crabby defensive nature, my shadow aspect, that, because we all have shadow aspects, whether we want to think about it or not. Nobody's ever exclusively the hero, the villain, the victim, or the saint. But we all have our times to go through each of those roles and others. But yeah, seems like that. There's a lot of people that want to get hung up on the victim mentality. And, you know, when I was getting my divorce, I joined this group on Facebook that was like this narcissistic support group thing, narcissistic abuse support group. And I was not on there very long because it seemed like everything was, oh, poor you, and, you know, this is why these people are monsters and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I feel like I am, even back then, it's like, I don't like just accepting the role of the victim. It's like, that doesn't seem very empowering, you know. And I went on a tangent in this one group. It's like, yeah, I refuse to do this, you know. It's like, I would like to have good things happen. I don't want to get locked in this mentality of everything sucks, it's always going to suck, and nothing's ever going to get better. It's like, it felt like that's what the groups were basically for. It's like, I don't want to be part of that. Screw that. And, you know, as I've gone through this healing stuff, it's like, I can't not call it my own toxicity that got me into those situations to some degree. And part of it is this little shadow aspect where, you know, there's that lash out first and think about it later kind of a thing, you know. But then, like, on everything that did happen, it's like, okay, now how much of that is skewed also by, my chair's falling apart. Sorry. By that shadow aspect shining its head. Because I know that is a thing that I do, and denying it doesn't make sense, you know. So I gotta own it, and then, okay, if you're gonna own it, then, well, you gotta be able to figure out how to work through that and move beyond that. So that's a whole thing too. But then, sorry, my space heater kicked up and my brain quit. Yeah, it's just, it feels icky. I don't want to be locked into that kind of mindset, because that in and of itself, the one of you're always the victim and you've never done anything wrong, that's kind of toxic too. So, you know, and it was my own toxicity that got me into those like that situation with my ex, and the inability to trust myself when I knew I was doing something I shouldn't be doing, getting married, you know, and for the various points of not being able to trust that others might have my good in mind ever along the way as well. Yeah, I don't know. You know, and that book I've talked about periodically, that Wisdom of the Shamans, you know, he talks about how there's that, basically the parasitic thinking, where, or the addiction to suffering, that was one way he worded it. But yeah, it's like talking about the mind, or the parasite in the mind. You know, it's basically like ego shit, right? So we got to work through the ego to get to listening to the heart, I guess. Yeah, because, yeah, that's what a lot of this is. But then, you know, like, okay, like talking about the abusive parts of my past, it's like, yes, they were definitely there. However, I'm also feeling like, you know, I have to be open to the possibility that some of that, okay, there's definitely toxic cycles. And that definitely played out abusively on the emotional and psychological end in various ways. But at the same time, it's like, it wasn't only ever shit, you know, and, you know, my brother and I both have good memories among the garbage ones. It's just, we were so traumatized by the garbage ones that seemed to take precedence. But it's like, so how do we navigate the healing journey and, you know, going to that point of forgiveness is something you do for yourself, not for the other person. And it's like that, like this whole thing, this being able to talk through things and get it out of my system has helped me to be able to forgive some of the things that have happened and be able to move on from them, I think. Even though, obviously, I still go back to some of it from time to time because it's still part of the process. But, yeah. It's just a whole thing. Yeah, so I'll be honest, at this point, it's just feeling awkward because I know people will eventually be walking past, and I'm starting to get a little paranoid about that possibility and still trying to keep this under wraps and all that fun stuff. So, yeah. I think I'm going to wrap this up and go feed my dogs because they're behaving and, well, Gidget's staring at me. But yeah, if nothing else, this has been the first time that I've done a video at the house with somebody else home. Well, like I said, if I would have started like way earlier, this wouldn't have even been a consideration. I probably would have been talking normal too. But it's what it is. And I feel like one way or another, I gotta make this a point, or make it a point to continue doing this more regularly, like I started to right after I hit the year mark, and then was trying to get 100 videos in before the end of November, which I did. And then it's like I jumped in subscribers there for a while, so that was kind of cool. And then it kind of been stagnating again. But I think that's because I fell off and just stopped doing anything, or much of anything. So I gotta fix that. But now I at least know I am capable of doing this with somebody else in the house. Just, yeah, it's still weird. Tomorrow I should be able to do one without anybody in the house, though, but we'll see. That's just a matter of if I'm dragging my feet or not. Anyway, this kid's back. So, I'm gonna go feed this crazy kid and probably take a couple movies that are late back to the library, because I did not do that. I was going to watch one of them earlier and then didn't do it then either. But yeah. She would like her dinner. So I'm going to wrap this up and say, as always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.